The following program is produced by the AM First Radio Network and distributed by Global American Broadcasting, the GAB Radio Network.
Thank you for tuning in for this edition of Justice Watch with Attorney Zulu Ali. I am Attorney Zulu Ali with the Justice Watch crew, Rosa Nunez, Michael Bilal Clark, Dr. Akil Bashir, and Andrea Rodeman. This week, like every week, we'll be discussing critical, legal, and social justice issues that are impacting our community. Well, we got a lot to talk about. There's been a lot to talk about. The last couple of weeks, we just basically get so much out and unable to necessarily address a lot of critical issues that are going on. There's so many incidents that are happening. There's some that have happened over the last month or so that, I almost forgot. There's so many, so every time I think about a new subject or something else that we can talk about, it seems like something else will come up and then that kind of overlaps that, and something else will come up, it'll overlap that. So, there's a lot of news coming out, a lot of incidents that have happened. I know last week we talked a little bit about the situation where you said that the lady who, shot two police officers and basically lived to tell the story. Of course, we've had something recently. How many times that last incident? I can't remember where it was. The young man that got shot, was it 60-something times? You know what I'm talking about? You remember that story? Was it Jalen Walker? Is that who it was?
Yeah, I remember hearing something about.
Yeah, that was back. Well, that's been a minute. I think that was back in June, where he says he was hit by 46 bullets. That was one. That was one on the traffic stop. That was in Akron.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, it's like every week it's a different story, and it's just so much, and we're not necessarily a news station, so we just really aren't going to be focused on just sitting here telling everybody what's happened. But I think that we need to really unpack all the stuff that's been happening, and is there anything else that we can tell folks with regards to the crisis that we have that's going on in the justice system, and what can we as a society do about it? And maybe that's the problem. Maybe the bigger problem is that we have critical issues that are going on in our society, but yet and still we really don't have people who are willing to go out and do anything about it, regardless of what you tell them. You know what I mean? So, what is it that, is it, how do you get people moving? Do we start pointing the fingers at ourselves? Should that be the discussion and the criticism that we have, with regards to a people, and all people who really aren't doing as much as they should when it comes to, addressing and dealing with really what's going on, in our society? Because, we cry a lot. You know what I mean? We're very, especially when it comes to, the system, you hear it all the time. Once you get in the system, then all of a sudden, then it becomes a problem, and you hear, the crying about it. But unfortunately, whenever you live in a society that does not, at least have at the essence of its of its doctrine, to make sure that you do whatever you can to help other people, then ultimately, as they always say, eventually they're going to come after you. And when they come after you, then what are you going to do? And we tend to basically be somewhat of a society that tends to pay more of attention to, because there's a lot of crises and there are a lot of issues that are going on with all kinds of people. But, whenever something happens and it doesn't happen to you, then and it doesn't happen to you and we don't do anything about it, I think that's where the problem lies, right?
Yeah.
That we're not willing to go out and we're not really willing to do anything other than what we're doing now. In some ways, I feel like, are we paralyzed because of the way social media? Are we paralyzed that now we do less maybe we do more? I mean, we have all this information now.
Hmm.
It's not like that we're not informed, more informed than we've ever been. But do we really, respond, or are we're still in COVID mode where we're just sitting around watching Netflix and YouTube videos, and we're
Hmm.
seeing everything that's happening, but we're just not necessarily going out and making a move and doing something about it.
I think one of the things is that a lot of people, when we talk about and we bring the news to the forefront and we discuss the news, I think a lot of people sit back because we hear it so much and we see it so much to where people begin to believe that they become helpless. They feel as though it's a helpless situation. And I think that what we have to do is we have to start empowering people with solutions and giving them some type of direction. Because as long as we talk about it, I think we feed into it. And as long as we feed into it, people will sit back and feel helpless about it. And as you know, that we have several people that sit back and they believe that we have to have a leader in order to guide us in
Mhm.
that direction. And if they don't see that leader giving them that direction, they feel that, okay, we're just going to continue to sit where we are until somebody come along that can help us. And I think that's the wrong type of attitude to have towards it. I think that we have to empower each other. We have to constantly promote and push solutions to the problem and empower the people and motivate the people to go out and do something. Because some people are not going to do anything until they are affected by it directly, by the hurt, by the pain. And that's when they want to take to the streets. That's when they want to march. That's when they want to protest. But we have to start working on the solutions, start motivating people and empowering people with solutions to change the dynamics of what's been going on.
Mm. Yeah. What say you, Rosa?
I mean, I agree. I just feel that in a way we are out of a period where people have been in survival mode. You
Mm,
know, COVID, there was a lot of deaths. There's people who are now shifting their mentality in terms of even partaking in the corporate world because they understand that life is, it's once. So in that mindset, we have the regard and the thinking that we're comfortable where we're at and we're okay where we're at because we're alive. But in that comes the flaw of not really advocating for social justice and fighting for a set of the community that's struggling and suffering. And I think that in general, as a country, as a world, we've become very comfortable with the norms and the systems in place. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's you're right. I mean, I think that we have become complacent with the way things are going. I think that we've almost developed some sense of tolerance to a
mm-hmm,
lot of what's happening in our society and the things that we're seeing. And it's unfortunate, that we've it seems like our hope we're more there's less hope now than I think ever before,
mm-hmm,
in the past.
yeah.
And I think that stems from the hopelessness, stems from I believe that there was when we did not have 24/7, um, you know, just inundated with all of this, news and all this information, and we were not exposed to quite as much. I think that there was a sense that it was just a matter of going, it's a matter of going to the right authority, presenting your argument, and ultimately things are really going to happen. I mean, I think that there was hope, at that
Mm-hmm,
time. I mean, at least from my perspective,
mm-hmm,
because I think I think that we've completely 110% lost all faith in the judicial system.
mm-hmm,
You know what I mean? I mean, we just have absolutely have no faith, in the system. And part of what's happening, just to be completely honest, is that, you know, what happened to humanity? Or was I naive to think that we were a lot more humane as people than what we really are. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just like when you see things play itself out in front of you, especially when it comes to, you know, it's our fault as a society. It's just like the slavery question, right? You know, I think the thing that really that takes you back about the whole, and I'm just using this as an example, the thing that takes you back is not necessarily the institution, but and the individuals involved in the institution, but the fact that you had an entire society that allowed it to happen. The same way when you said and you see all the things that are happening in the media and the beatings and the way that they treat human beings, and now you know there's no excuse because everybody sees it, and the fact that you would allow that to happen. So now I think that really what we've done is basically it's almost like with social media, it's confirmed what we believed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that there was always like, you know, you would think that there's individuals and that in the essence of human beings in this society, ultimately there's goodness and basically, you know, the
Idea where to start? Or have you been hosting a podcast for a while and want to take it to the next level? If so, you need the Gab Radio Network. To host a show on the Gab Radio Network, all you need is your voice, and we'll handle the rest. From technical engineering to full-service audio production and much more. Every show on the Gab Radio Network can be heard on our station on the TuneIn Radio app. Plus, we put all of our shows on our satellite, which is accessed by over 5,500 stations. And here's the best part. You can host from anywhere you want. There are many means to connect to the Gab Radio Network remotely, and our staff of highly trained engineers and producers will make you sound like you're right here in studio. So, if you want to be on the Gab Radio Network, the same network that hosts the Small Business Advocate, Radio MD, and the Federalist, send an email right now to sales@gabradionetwork.com. That's sales@gabradionetwork.com.
Nubian Pictures presents a CCM Films production documentary entitled Purpose and Freedom. Keep your hand on the plow. This emotional and strong documentary tells the story of African-American lawyer Zulu Ali seeking justice and his purpose as a lawyer, while crossing paths with Araceli, an undocumented immigrant from Mexico who is seeking her freedom. Together, they help discover their purpose and freedom in each other. Watch this incredible film today from iTunes Movies, YouTube Movies, Amazon Prime, and Google Play Movies. Learn about the cast and crew, links to purchase, and more at purposeandfreedommovie.com. Purpose and Freedom. Keep your hand on the plow. Available now. Rated G.
I did not feel safe. That's why I decided to come to California, because I didn't feel safe in Mexico.
It's kind of like the system, and if you go outside the system, then it becomes a struggle.
Are you an immigrant seeking defense representation and are looking to protect your rights? Or maybe someone who is experiencing an injustice or discrimination and need a lawyer you can trust? Well, that's exactly why you need the help of award-winning trial lawyer Zulu Ali. The law offices of Zulu Ali provides immigration defense representation for those seeking justice and looking to protect their rights. If you or a loved one needs professional legal advice and representation, then contact Zulu Ali. Zulu Ali's firm focuses on criminal law, family law, civil and personal injury, and international law. Zulu Ali is a former police officer and U.S. Marine, so you know you're in good hands. Serving all of California and immigration cases nationwide, representing victims and suspects at the International Criminal Court at The Hague. Call Zulu Ali today at 888-682-3049 or visit ZuluAliLaw.com.
Welcome back to Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali and the Justice Watch crew, where we're continuing with our discussion on several critical issues that are impacting our community. For today, I thought that we kind of like freelance it a little bit today because there's so much that's been going on that we want to kind of address some issues. And one of the things that we were talking about at the break about the issue that you were discussing said that a Florida sheriff's deputy resigned after he pulled a gun on a pregnant black woman during a traffic stop, as her 3 distressed children watched on and recorded the tense interaction. The incident happened August the 12th, just before midnight, when Bradford County Sheriff's Deputy Jacob DeSue, I think that's how you pronounce it, tried to pull over Ebony Washington of Jacksonville, the sheriff's office said. She was speeding at 75 in the 55 as she drove north on State Road 200. I guess that's in Jacksonville. The sheriff's office said when DeSue indicated that she should pull over, she didn't stop her vehicle. I guess she waited till she got into a lighted area. And then basically once she was ultimately pulled over, then he just loses his mind and goes off on her, right?
Mm-hmm.
And did you see that, Rosa?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's exasperating.
Yeah. I mean, and so, you know, from the officer's perspective, and I'm sure other people's perspective, there are those who are going to say, well, had she had pulled over, you know, it would have never happened.
Yeah.
Right? That basically, if you follow the law and you do what you're told, then basically nothing will ever happen. And so, you know, in the reality, I mean, in theory, it sounds good, but the reality of it is that it just doesn't happen that way. Mm-hmm. You know, and basically, I don't think that we should spend. I mean, you get into this. There could be this argument, and the argument that we get into, especially, and that's one of the reasons why, you know, the format of this show is more, you know, it is biased. And it is one-sided because it's not a show where I want to sit around and debate with someone who only wants to debate on a particular issue, and that's it. You know what I mean? I just don't see any necessarily, and it's you know, it's nice to watch a debate. It's good to watch them argue. It's good to say I got one up on you or you got him and all this other kind of stuff. But in the final analysis, everybody goes to their side, and you will never generally see anyone changing their position based upon these arguments and these debates, right? In almost any case where you see people that change sides are people who move, they're moved by their own personal experiences.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that we live in a world, unfortunately, and I say world, where people typically, unfortunately, are not blessed with empathy. Mm-hmm. We think that we are, but most people are not blessed, you know, aren't blessed with empathy. And I always say there's 2 sides to everybody, who you are and who you really want to be. Mm-hmm. And you can go inside the church, the synagogue, or the mosque every week and go and sit there and do whatever you're going to do. But in the final analysis, unless you have some sort of empathy and you're willing to help your fellow man and you're concerned about that fellow man, it's all hypocrisy. Mm-hmm. You know, there is no reality to that.
Yeah.
And so people just kind of tend to go to their own sides and and that's what you have on the debate here in our country, is that the police. You know, we spoke last week about, you know, are police officers treated unfairly or hated unfairly? Is that what the topic was?
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, there's actually good police officers. We know that. However, as an organization and as a system, you know, it has been unfair and oppressive to certain people.
Yeah.
And there's no question about that. I guess the thing that makes it really annoying to me is that they already know that it's unfair to black people. Mm-hmm. That's not news. It's not a convincing. It's not like, okay, let me get this guy over here and let's talk about the system. Let's talk about what happened to this woman and what transpired, right? Mm-hmm. You know, the reality of it is that if you're looking for a reason to justify the actions, or you're pro-police or you're pro-Trump or whatever your situation is, there's nothing I'm going to probably say that's going to change your mind, mm-hmm. right? Because you know that what's been happening to people is unfair. The reality of it is the bigger problem that we have is not the system. The bigger problem is that we have a society that does not care.
Exactly.
That's what it really boils down to. And so, when you have a society that doesn't care, how do you change the paradigm, or how do you appeal to the humanness of people? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's the real question.
I, I don't I don't know, and that's the thing, and like you say, it's just people just don't care. But I think that, what you brought up in terms of humanity, I think that's the issue there. That's the issue. I mean, if you can have more people that's concerned about humanity in general, even if you want to take color off of it, if we just had people that just cared about people in general, and I'm quite sure those people outnumber the people that does not care whatsoever. But it's just like you say, they have to get out the place in which they're at, where they feel that they don't need to be involved. They just want to deal with themselves. They just want to deal with their immediate surroundings. If it does not affect them, then it does not apply to them. And I think that once we're able to take them out of that, and like you say, the churches and all of that, if you're not, my thing is, if you're not out in the street, if you preaching these teachings of being good, the teachings of whoever it may be, and every teaching it talks about doing something good for humanity, doing charity work, doing so forth and so on. And I think that if you just sitting off in the masjid, if you sitting off in the synagogue in the church, then you're really not doing the work that's basically that you were called for. And I think with all the churches, masjids, synagogues in the world, we should have the streets filled with trying to change the dynamics of what's been going on in this world.
Yeah. I think, was you going to say something, Rosa?
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like sadly we live in a capitalistic system where we're all kind of forced to be very individualistic. And that mentality has transpired to our current society, where all you worry about is yourself, because that's what you have to do to survive in this country, sadly. And, I think that when it comes to church and uniting the community, it's sad because we're waiting for us to get to heaven to be holy, right? But I think that we should worry more about having heaven on earth and what that looks like for everyone, regardless of race and color and socioeconomic status. But the country and the capitalistic system that we serve, it's to each of their own, and you just fight for yourself. So, yeah, there's definitely this selfish dynamic that just continues to permeate throughout our society, and it's really sad to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the interesting thing about our society is the conformity, that there is a lot of conformity. And I think that one of the interesting dynamics to watch in this society are people who actually come from predominantly are what we consider to be immigrant nations, where we have a large number of influx of immigrants. For example, whether you're talking about some Asian communities or whether you're talking about some Latin American communities, and watching the dynamics between those who are have more of a connection to the immigrant aspect of the community, as opposed to those who have a connection to more of the U.S. side of it, and how they play each other or play against each other. And you know what I mean? So in other words, for example, if you have someone who is a recent immigrant, or parents may be immigrant, or they interact a certain way, right? And then ultimately those who have basically, so I guess maybe integrated into the society, act a completely different way and treat those individuals from their own country the same way that the popular the popular society treats those people. If you watch that dynamics, you can kind of get a better understanding of really what's happening in this country. But at any rate, please do not touch that dial. We'll be back on the other side with Justice Watch.
There's a new nationally syndicated radio program that's sweeping the nation, and you don't want to miss it. Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali, the voice of justice for the people. The focus of Justice Watch is to provide an honest analysis and viable solutions to the criminal and social justice crisis in America and the world from a black, brown, working class, and socially disadvantaged perspective, and to motivate listeners to be informed and part of the solution. Zulu Ali is joined by the Justice Crew, consisting of Rosa Nunez, Michael Clark, Dr. Akil Bashir, and Charito Ali to tackle the most pressing issues. Host Attorney Zulu Ali is a former police officer, U.S. Marine Corps veteran, and an award-winning trial lawyer who focuses on representing persons accused of crimes, immigrants, victims of discrimination, and persons seeking civil justice. Find out how to listen to Justice Watch with Attorney Zulu Ali at justicewatchradio.com. Nubian Pictures presents a CCM Films production documentary entitled Purpose and Freedom. Keep your hand on the plow. This emotional and strong documentary tells the story of African-American lawyer Zulu Ali seeking justice and his purpose as a lawyer, while crossing paths with Araceli, an undocumented immigrant from Mexico who is seeking her freedom. Together, they help discover their purpose and freedom in each other. Watch this incredible film today from iTunes Movies, YouTube Movies, Amazon Prime, and Google Play Movies. Learn about the cast and crew, links to purchase, and more at purposeandfreedommovie.com. Purpose and Freedom. Keep your hand on the plow. Available now. Rated G.
I did not feel safe. That's why I decided to come to California, because I didn't feel safe in Mexico.
It's kind of like the system, and if you go outside the system, then it becomes a struggle.
Are you an immigrant seeking defense representation and are looking to protect your rights? Or maybe someone who is experiencing an injustice or discrimination and need a lawyer you can trust? Well, that's exactly why you need the help of award-winning trial lawyer Zulu Ali. The law offices of Zulu Ali provides immigration defense representation for those seeking justice and looking to protect their rights. If you or a loved one needs professional legal advice and representation, then contact Zulu Ali. Zulu Ali's firm focuses on criminal law, family law, civil and personal injury, and international law. Zulu Ali is a former police officer and U.S. Marine, so you know you're in good hands, serving all of California and immigration cases nationwide, representing victims and suspects at the International Criminal Court at The Hague. Call Zulu Ali today at 888-682-3049 or visit ZuluAliLaw.com.
Welcome back to Justice Watch with Attorney Zulu Ali and the Justice Watch crew. We're continuing on our discussion about some of our hotly debated issues over the last few weeks. But going back into where I was discussing the issue of what pretty much a buy-in type of situation where you'll see, cultures where there's buy-ins. There's always, like, for example, when you look at the situation with Georgia and you look at Herschel Walker, for example, who basically has, bought in. You know what I mean? And so, they it's not like the Republican Party or the conservatives like him because they like his ideals. They like him because he basically has bought in, and he's lost. It's like his values are warped, and the trauma has taken the best of him, right? See, the reality of it is that basically it's this whole thing of trying. It's just like almost like, it's funny if you can understand the idea of the gang culture, right? The idea of the gang culture. If you study the history of gangs, like from the very beginning, like the gangs of New York. I'm not talking about just modern, but from the very beginning. Where you talk about, you see like the Irish gangs, the Jewish gangs, the Italian gangs, the black gangs. If you study the dynamics of how those people, how they relate to each other, then you'll begin to kind of understand the way America operates. And that's how it's just like political parties operate like gangs, right? When you say conservatives, or when you say Republicans, or when you say Democrats, when you say, all these different type of political party paradigms that you're looking at, it's the same thing. And we refer to people like that. You know what I mean? Like, as if that's your whole being. That means I've bought into it. And without even thinking about the details of really what's going on, I've bought into this. I'm committed and I'm bought into it. And my commitment is not with the truth. My commitment is with the game. Regardless, they're right, wrong. If I'm riding, I'm riding. And that's how we do it. And it's amazing how, if you study the gang culture as it relates both to political as well as so-called street gangs, you'll begin to understand how human beings are so much like each other, right? It's like the human beings are almost really, the same. And how, you have these unwritten rules and you have these informal, or you have unwritten formal ways of doing things. And it's amazing, man, when you think about, when you sit back and you look at the way human beings relate to each other and how animalistic we are as did you ever remember Wild Kingdom? You know what I'm talking about? Where you would say, do you remember that, Rosa? Wild Kingdom used to be a show that used to come on. Typically, it would come on Sundays. And it was basically how animals would act in their natural habitat. And there's always like, how they would prey on each other, basically. Right? And it would be like if someone was to sit back and watch human beings interact with each other and how humane, I guess, we're supposed to be, but how animalistic we really are.
Yeah.
And even those who are in some of the most civilized societies, it's amazing how diabolical they could be, especially when you look and you think about, like when you said and you watch the criminal justice system, right? And you wonder the fact that, there is clearly, statistically, we know that there's a significant number of individuals who are convicted of things that they didn't do, or they're over convicted. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And when you watch that play out, you know what I mean? I'm just telling you, man, you sit there and as old as I am, right? I'm just amazed at how this plays out when you watch these individuals go after someone. It's just like, let's just say I get a file, and just say the guy comes in and he's accused of robbery, and I look in his file and I say, well, he has a prior conviction where he took a plea before in a situation, and so my job at this point is to do whatever I possibly can do to convict this person. Right? And at that point in time, my mind is not, and then when I'm talking about people, I'm talking about the system.
Yeah.
So my mind is committed to making sure that I can get as much time on this person as I possibly can. Right? So in other words, let's see, how am I going to get this guy? I'm going to show the jury or show the court that he's been convicted of it before, right? I'm going to show his Facebook account. I'm going to show that, his brother and his sister, where he lived. I'm going to show that there's gang ties. I'm going to show that he had problems as a juvenile. I'm going to show everything that I possibly can to support the fact that I want this person convicted at any cost. And my mind will not allow me to step back and think, well, let me try to do something to make sure that this is the right person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just, and so that mentality, right? And people ask me questions about being a police officer, right? And at least I could be kidding myself, but I think from my mind, I think I'm a very fair thinking human being. I think that I can see things from any side, and I try to be as objective as I possibly can and I can walk and chew gum at the same time. So I'm not, I don't hate criminals because I was a police, right? And I don't hate the police because I'm a criminal defense attorney. And I mean, that's the gang mentality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so the mindset of people that I've had to get involved with when it comes to arresting and assisting the prosecuting of someone and the mindset of the criminal themselves, there's very little difference in the mindset, right? So it's just like when you sit at the table with gangsters and talk about what are they going to do with someone who violated the code, is pretty much the same as sitting at the table with the prosecutor and trying to figure out how are we going to prosecute the person who violates the code.
Yeah.
Right? It's amazing how those mindsets are so similar. Right?
Yeah.
It's just like the police, they say it's like a gang. And we do know there's gangs in policing. We know I'm not making it up. I'm saying we know for a fact that there are gangs in policing.
Yeah.
That they're like gangs themselves. That is not something I'm making up. And the way they relate to gangs on the street is often the same way.
Correct.
And the way they talk, the lingo, the connection, right? So we don't see that. But like, for example, the guy that's a police officer who's on patrol in the hood, so to speak, the way he talks to them the same way. You know what I'm saying? That they talk to each other, right? Homeboy, right? You know what I'm saying? You know, how you going to do certain things to them. I mean, it's amazing how close they are. The Bloods, the Crips, and the police.
Yeah.
Right? And often, and that's how we move as a society. We move like a gang mentality. Whenever somebody, for example, if someone says, "Hey, we heard that this black man whistled at this white woman in Alabama, in Huntsville, Alabama," what do? A gang gets together, sometimes wearing sheets, sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
And they go out in groups and get that person and do to them the same way that gangs do to people who violate the code or people who, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, everything that they did, they do it in groups. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a group thing. And that's how we act in our society, is that we move as gangs.
Yeah.
And that gang mentality, like packs. You know what I mean? And sometimes that's how we develop our value system.
True.
By gangs.
Yep.
You have religious organizations that are like gangs.
Yep.
I mean, they're like gangs. I'm not talking. I mean, literally. You know what I mean? The same way some of them, they act like cults. And so we just have this group and gang mentality in our society and in the world, you know, that makes us like animal-like. You know what I mean?
Radio program that's sweeping the nation, and you don't want to miss it. Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali, the voice of justice for the people. The focus of Justice Watch is to provide an honest analysis and viable solutions to the criminal and social justice crisis in America and the world from a black, brown, working class, and socially disadvantaged perspective, and to motivate listeners to be informed and part of the solution. Zulu Ali is joined by the Justice Crew, consisting of Rosa Nunez, Michael Clark, Dr. Akil Bashir, and Charito Ali to tackle the most pressing issues. Host attorney Zulu Ali is a former police officer, U.S. Marine Corps veteran, and an award-winning trial lawyer who focuses on representing persons accused of crimes, immigrants, victims of discrimination, and persons seeking civil justice. Find out how to listen to Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali at justicewatchradio.com. Nubian Pictures presents a CCM Films production documentary entitled Purpose and Freedom. Keep your hand on the plow. This emotional and strong documentary tells the story of African-American lawyer Zulu Ali seeking justice and his purpose as a lawyer, while crossing paths with Araceli, an undocumented immigrant from Mexico who is seeking her freedom. Together, they help discover their purpose and freedom in each other. Watch this incredible film today from iTunes Movies, YouTube Movies, Amazon Prime, and Google Play Movies. Learn about the cast and crew, links to purchase, and more at purposeandfreedommovie.com. Purpose and Freedom. Keep your hand on the plow. Available now. Rated G.
I did not feel safe. That's why I decided to come to California, because I didn't feel safe in Mexico.
It's kind of like the system, and if you go outside the system, then it becomes a struggle.
Are you an immigrant seeking defense representation and are looking to protect your rights? Or maybe someone who is experiencing an injustice or discrimination and need a lawyer you can trust? Well, that's exactly why you need the help of award-winning trial lawyer Zulu Ali. The law offices of Zulu Ali provides immigration defense representation for those seeking justice and looking to protect their rights. If you or a loved one needs professional legal advice and representation, then contact Zulu Ali. Zulu Ali's firm focuses on criminal law, family law, civil and personal injury, and international law. Zulu Ali is a former police officer and U.S. Marine, so you know you're in good hands, serving all of California and immigration cases nationwide, representing victims and suspects at the International Criminal Court at The Hague. Call Zulu Ali today at 888-682-3049 or visit ZuluAliLaw.com.
Welcome back to Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali and the Justice Watch crew, where we're continuing with our discussion today. But anyway, just to go back to a little bit about what we were talking about is, and so that kind of, it has an impact on how we see other people, and it also has an impact on our own biases when it comes to the so-called gang, because there is definitely, without question, a commitment that goes along to the blue when you're a police officer.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, because you're in a situation where it's a paramilitary organization where there is a huge commitment to those individuals that you work with, and there's a culture within the police department. There's informal rules. There's ways that you move, and sometimes it's just like, is everybody that's a blood a bad person? Is everybody that's a Crip a bad person? I mean, you can make someone believe that, but there's and this is the thing, not understanding the dynamics of that, of coming from a culture where, if everybody around you is affiliated, like they use the word affiliated, even when they're trying to prosecute you.
Yeah.
They say he was an associate or he was affiliated. Yeah. And then you say, well, what is that? Well, like, he was born in such and such place. Okay. And, so if you're born in the hood, everybody in your family's in the gang, your neighbor's in the gang, your daddy's an OG, your uncle's an OG, right? And you're being prosecuted because of your affiliation. How unfair is that?
Very unfair.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I've been to trial with a guy who basically, they said that he was basically a gang member, and they gave him a moniker. And the moniker was like short for his name. It could have been anybody's moniker, right? It wasn't something that seemed, out of the way. And then he had a bunch of stops by law enforcement in gang areas. But they didn't say, well, he lived like that. They were always like 2 blocks from where he lived.
Yeah.
So no matter where you stopped him, if you stopped him anywhere close to his home, he would have been in a gang. So, it's the same thing when you're saying not all police officers are bad. Well, not all gang members are bad.
Yeah.
You can be born into the life.
Yeah.
And so, that goes back to the whole idea of, where's humanity? We can't, our lens outside our own surroundings is have you ever just sit there and had a conversation with someone and you're trying to make sense out of it, and you think you got them because you give them your best stuff, and then when they respond to you, you're like, I just sit there and talk to you, man, you didn't get nothing that I say, because what I just told you had nothing to do with what I was talking about. What you said made no sense.
Yeah.
Because your mind is there. Sometimes can you really conceive humanity? Can you conceive the fact that, when it comes to, let's just say when it comes to the issues when we talk about African American or black people, or when you can see something when you're talking about Hispanic or you talk about, Mexican people, right? Now, I can sit here all day and I can give you generalities about black people, and I can give you generalities about Mexican people. But I would be the biggest fool in the world to think that all Mexican people think the same and all black people think the same, because it's just not true. It's just absolutely 110% not true. But that's how we're educated. That's how we're trained in our society, and that's the reason why if you really want to know why we have problems in our society, that's why. Because everything, it's the same way when they try to prosecute people. The DA, when they're trying to put gang things on people, or human trafficking things on people, or different things on people, and then the whole idea is dirty them up.
Yeah.
I'm going to give them the dirty. I'm going to appease their stereotypes. People are convicted out of stereotypes. So let's just say, for example, it's the same thing with the issue of, you've heard someone got caught one time in my line of work, what I do for a living one day. We really couldn't show it the way we wanted to, because it was kind of illegally the way that the person who got the information. But this lady told my client, bold-faced, yeah, who are they going to believe? Are they going to believe me?
Oh, wow.
Are they going to believe you? Right? When Karen calls the police and says something, right, and it's not videotaped, who are you going to believe?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yep.
Because you're the big black dude. She called him a big black man. You remember the Terrell Owens situation?
Yeah.
Why? Because the stereotypes.
Yep.
That's a buzzword. So we play on those stereotypes. It could be it's not what he did. It's that, look, this is my race card, right? And I'm going to throw this situation out there.
Yeah.
And we still, in society, we still can't come to terms when it comes to trying to figure out how we deal with trying to make things fair in our society. We still can't come to terms with the fact that, we're just, our humanity's at question. Because those who are making the decision, this is like, for example, what's the there's only, let me give you this right here, and I got to leave, I'm going to let somebody else talk, but I'm going to say, this is what I'm saying. A black kid born in sub-poverty or poverty that lives in a crime-infested neighborhood, who joins a gang, and through that, experience, enters a life of crime. Another guy who happens to be white, who comes from a family of means, who becomes a prosecutor, who becomes a judge, who's making decisions about someone's life. They're the same people. You seen Traded Places? that was a fictional show. It's fiction.
Mm-hmm.
But if you change their positions and how they got there, they would be the exact same people. And I'm completely convinced of that, because the thing about it, watch a judge when he gets in trouble. Does he say, well, I'm a judge and the law is the law and I've done something wrong and I want to plead guilty? And no. He acts just like the dude on the street.
Yep.
The great equalizer is when they get you by the short hairs.
Yeah.
Everybody acts the same. I've been in the criminal justice system ever since I was 18 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, whether policing, in the private sector, or whatever. I've not once seen someone in trouble act any different. They act exactly the same way. When they get their hand caught in the cookie jar, right? Mm-hmm. Why didn't Trump just say, go ahead and just, search my...
Nationally syndicated radio program that's sweeping the nation, and you don't want to miss it. Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali, the voice of justice for the people. The focus of Justice Watch is to provide an honest analysis and viable solutions to the criminal and social justice crisis in America and the world from a black, brown, working class, and socially disadvantaged perspective, and to motivate listeners to be informed and part of the solution. Zulu Ali is joined by the Justice Crew, consisting of Rosa Nunez, Michael Clark, Dr. Akil Bashir, and Charito Ali to tackle the most pressing issues. Host attorney Zulu Ali is a former police officer, U.S. Marine Corps veteran, and an award-winning trial lawyer who focuses on representing persons accused of crimes, immigrants, victims of discrimination, and persons seeking civil justice. Find out how to listen to Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali at justicewatchradio.com.
You're on board KCAA's Inland Talk Express.